Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Titus. Now in this video, I'm here to talk to you guys about how to eliminate your fungus gnats. Okay, for those people who aren't really aware of what fungus gnats are, and if you haven't encountered them before, they're basically those tiny little insects that are just flying about around your plants, and they often can get in your face, in your food, and anywhere around the house, and they can be really annoying, and they don't usually bite, so it doesn't really hurt. They don't really eat the plant's leaves as well, so it doesn't really affect them as bad. However, okay, sometimes they can be really annoying, and I heard that larvae oftentimes may eat at roots of plants and therefore affecting a plant's health. Okay, so fungus gnats in general is harmless as far as I'm aware. However, the most annoying thing about fungus gnats is that they just fly everywhere once they've infested a particular pot or space in your house. So here's a tip on how to control and eliminate your fungus gnats around your house. Alright, so before we get started, I want to talk to you guys about what it is that actually makes the infestation quite worse or bad when you do have fungus gnats around your house. And some of those things could include having a damp soil. A damp or wet soil is often the breeding grounds for fungus gnats, and they often love this because it allows their eggs and larvae to actually thrive and move about the soil. If the soil is generally dry, they will often either remain dormant or not exist at all. So just keep that in mind. Now, the reason why these fungus gnats are actually called fungus gnats apparently is because often they will actually feed on fungus on your soil. So when you do have a lot of fungus gnats, either there's a lot of nutrients in your soil that they're actually eating at, and or some fungus spores or fungus that are actually growing underneath. Now, you might not actually see mushrooms actually growing out of your pot. In other cases, you actually do. However, if fungus gnats do exist, oftentimes it's because of that they have a food source. Now with fungus gnats, also understand, like what I've mentioned before, is that because it comes in different stages just like other insects. So you have your egg form, you have your larvae form, and then you have your semi-adult to adult form, which is basically the flying fungus gnats. It's important to target them at each and every stage. Now, these different techniques that I'm going to share with you guys involves things that I haven't tried but I heard are effective. There's ones that I've tried, however, are ineffective. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is what actually works to actually help get rid of those fungus gnats. So I hope that you guys will stick around to actually listen to all of that. Now, what are some of the things that actually might work? So the first suggestion that I've had before are neem oils. Again, often neem oils are reconstituted with other solutions because oftentimes they can be quite strong and potent and may even be quite dangerous to some plants if given in high quantities or doses. The reason why I haven't tried neem oil before is purely because it's quite pricey and expensive as I looked online. Although there had been a pre-reconstituted solution that I've tried before with neem oil, and I realized that the smell of it is quite strong. If you're gonna have something like that in your house and you've got pets and kids or a wife, then it might not be something that's actually going to be good for the environment because it can often cause a lot of headache. Certainly here in my office area where I have tons and tons of plants, I have tried that reconstituted neem oil, and it certainly gave me a lot of headaches. A lot of people's go-to in terms of pest control will often be neem oil, but for me that's not my first go-to, so that's something that I haven't tried in terms of actually consistently using to kill fungus gnats. The next thing that I've been told to try, however I haven't really tried before, is diatomaceous earth. So what diatomaceous earth is actually fossilized remain of some type of certain algae that is actually grinded into small dust-like particle. If you put it on top of the soil of your pot, and apparently on plants, oftentimes it's a natural insecticide that is used on vegetables, and apparently once washed off, it's still going to be okay to eat that particular vegetable. If you're using it indoor, apparently the way it works with insects and with fungus gnats is oftentimes those powdery, tiny, microscopic, fossilized remains actually gets in between their joints and actually rubs together and actually then kills the fungus gnats. So that's another one that I've heard that's really effective. However, the thing why that is not my go-to is because number one, it's not as accessible, and also number two, they're quite pricey and expensive again. So it's not really something that I've tried before, and I've read some reviews related to it that apparently once you put it on top of the soil, it may cover the whole top layer of it. And if you're putting it on a potted plant, then often it can cut the aerated circulation of the plant, and also you can't water from top to bottom because once the diatomaceous earth actually turns quite muddy or wet, it's not going to actually do what it's supposed to do and actually be powdery, like affecting the fungus net. So I haven't really tried diatomaceous earth before. If you have, again, if it's something effective for you, please do let me know down the comment below. The third solution that I haven't tried again is the net barrier. So this one, we started having a similar thing produced here in Australia. I forgot what it's called, but it's from the company Yates. If I do remember the product, I will post it down here on my side. Now, net barriers, again, this one is actually really expensive for just a bag. I think it's around $30 something. Don't quote me on that. But if I were to put that in all my potted plants, even though it's probably good for aeration, it's not gonna be something that's sustainable, purely because you might repot your plants. And also, I don't know how it's going to affect the aeration of the soil as well, nor will I be able to actually visualize how the soil looks like if it's covered in a net barrier. So I haven't tried that either. And then the last thing is bugs for bugs. Now, when you're killing off fungus gnats, from what I've heard anyway, or what I've read, is apparently you can buy different types of predatory bugs and nematodes, I think they call it, to actually target and kill the larvae. It doesn't necessarily kill the adult form of the fungus gnats. However, there are some easier ways to actually kill adult fungus gnats, so we'll discuss that as well. So the bugs for bugs is again another expensive option that I have looked into, but I haven't tried yet. Although I've heard that a lot of nurseries actually use bugs for bugs to actually kill off all the pest type like plants, because often pesticides aren't really healthy for humans. They're also sometimes not healthy for plants as well, and some of them can be really potent. So just be mindful about what you guys use. Now, the next thing I'm going to discuss with you guys are the things that actually have been suggested, something that I've actually tried, and something that's actually not worked. Okay, so let's discuss what those are. So one of them is the one where they say you can mix vinegar and soap together, mix it in a solution, put it in a bowl, and apparently the fungus gnats will just get attracted to it, go to the actual solution itself and die. Okay, now whilst that may be effective for some people who have tons and tons of fungus gnats, when you get to a point of it's just tiny bit of fungus gnats all around, it's actually not effective. In fact, it smells so bad to keep them, and they often dry out quite quickly that you need to keep refilling them. You need to keep them around the house, and because that vinegar smell is really not pleasant to the nose, it's not something that I've actually continued to try. I tried it for 1 week, and that solution that I had didn't catch much at all compared to what I will tell you guys later on. So it's not something that I would suggest. The next tip that was given that didn't really work for me is bottom watering. Okay, whilst that's actually partially healthy for your plants to bottom water, because often they would just absorb the water that they need, often with fungus gnats, it doesn't really help with the problem. If you bottom water your plant, then oftentimes once the water actually dissipates and gets absorbed in the pot, the adult fungus gnats will actually go under your pots, lay their eggs, and then when the larvae are ready, they're actually going to emerge from that bottom pot as well. And I've certainly seen some of my trays before containing lots and lots of fungus gnat larvae, because often even though the top side of that pot is dry, underneath it it's quite moist and there's also air, so that's where they're going to breed. So when people say bottom water plants to get rid of fungus gnats, it's not really as effective as you would think. So that's something that didn't work for me. And then the last thing that I've tried that again, I don't think is effective. In fact, I think it's also detrimental for the plant, is putting matchsticks on your pot. Now, I've heard that tons and tons of people have sworn by it, that they've tried it, that it works, but honestly, for me, it doesn't. Okay, in fact, I've wanted to experiment on some of my plants before, and what I found is not only did it not kill the fungus gnats, but it also killed my plant. Okay, so often the matchstick may contain, I think, that substance called pyrethrum, which again, I'll come back to later on. However, it actually contains other minerals like phosphorus, I don't know what else is in there, to be honest, that can be a bit too much for the plant. And whilst in small quantities, it's good because it almost acts as additional fertilizer. In huge quantities, it's not really going to be good for the plant. So again, I don't think that's a sustainable type of solution to fungus gnats. So I've tried it, it didn't work. So I, again, stop doing it. Now let's talk about the actual things that actually work. Okay, so firstly, we're going to talk about how to target the adults fungus gnats, and then we're going to talk about the larvae. Or maybe we should do it. Yeah, I'll do the adults first, okay? Just because they're more visible to the eye. And the thing that works for me is these sticky fly traps. Okay, so I'm trying to get my camera to focus the best as it could, but it won't for some reason. Very, very annoying. Okay, it's very tiny there, but I'm probably going to shoot a separate B-roll so I can go close up on this and you can see how well this sticky trap has actually killed the fungus gnats. There's actually tons and tons of them that got caught. This is actually an old one I've had since 6 months ago and haven't replaced. So if you're wondering why I have so much, it's because I just haven't replaced this at all, but I haven't really seen them around as much outside. Here in my office, I've pretty much eliminated them. But this is one of the best ways to get rid of the adult fungus gnats, okay? And visually, you can actually see them dying off. Now, the next thing that I would use for adults as well, and this is something that I've never really thought about because it can be quite unhealthy for people, for pets, for babies. We don't have a pet, but we do have a baby now, is fly spray, okay? It's not something that people often think about, but obviously kind of like flies and other insects, if you use a normal fly spray, honestly, it's just gonna kill the adults, okay? They're aerosol and they just float around the surface of wherever the fungus gnats are. And often if you just point it at them, it will instantly kill them, okay? So if you're trying to target the adults, either use the sticky strap, which is less toxic, or use the fly spray for fast results. All right, now let's talk about the larvae form. There's actually just 2 products that I actually use for it. And one of them that I've tried before is the hydrogen peroxide. Okay, again, hydrogen peroxide is quite acidic, so you might want to just make sure that it's actually reconstituted with water, because if you don't, it can burn the roots. If you do dilute it with water, it can actually be beneficial for the plant because that peroxide part of that solution can actually hydrate and oxygenate the roots itself. So I've tried this experiment before with a glass type of soil mix that I had with a plant in it, and you could see the larvae of fungus gnats actually going in there. I tried hydrogen peroxide. It actually did kill the fungus gnats, but again, with the larvae, you need to consistently and continually treat the soil probably every 2 weeks to make sure that if there are any adult fungus gnats that have escaped and started laying eggs, that you actually start killing off those eggs. And also, I think with hydrogen peroxide, it kills the larvae, but often it doesn't really kill the eggs. So there might still be some eggs that are still waiting to be hatched as well. So just be mindful of that when you treat it, you have to be consistent. Just like with the fly spray and also those sticky traps, you may need to keep replacing them every fortnight to actually make sure that they're effective and actually still doing what they need to do. And then the next solution that I would use is pyrethrum, just right here. Okay, so you guys might have seen me use this picture on my cover page. Okay, this one is actually super duper effective in killing off insects. That there was one time where I saw this really huge as huntsman just in our garage, and I'm not really a fan of spiders. I sprayed it with this and it literally killed it. Obviously I was panicking, so I sprayed a lot of it, but it certainly paralyzed and then it killed that spider. So with fungus gnats, obviously it's one of the ones that oh, it doesn't actually say here fungus gnats, but I've heard that apparently this one will actually work on soil when you spray it. Now be very careful about this spray. If you spray it on the leaves, it can often burn it. It's so potent that it can actually affect the leaves foliage. But if you spray this in the plant's soil, it should be okay. Again, religiously you might want to spray that every 2 weeks. This particular one that I have is extra strong. It does say at the back there that it can last up to 20 days. I would just suggest that you read the instructions of that product that you use, but a spray that has pyrethrum, one sprayed in a moist soil, can actually kill fungus gnats larvae. And the reason how I found out about that is again through the experiment. So with another glass-like container with a plant in it, I actually saw fungus gnat larvae and then sprayed it with this, and it actually instantly killed it, I think after 1 to 2 days. So these are really effective in controlling it. I did tell a friend about this before, and she's mentioned to me that they apparently got rid of all their fungus gnats in their house, and similar to myself as well. This is what I use for my office area so that I don't get that infestation here. So I really highly recommend pyrethrum, and these is actually more affordable than all those other first things that I mentioned before. I think one spray, which can last you for about 3 months, can actually cost up to $10 to $15, I think. Okay, so pyrethrum. This brand is not actually a sponsor of this video. I'm just using this as an example. And then another thing that I've actually tried to do, which I thought was maybe quite effective in retaining moisture and also warding off fungus gnats, is putting some layers of sphagnum moss on top of the plant pot. Now the reason why I do that is because it often retains moisture inside, which is really good. But also when this sphagnum moss actually dries off, it becomes really crusty, and oftentimes adult fungus gnats isn't able to actually come through. So it acts as like kind of a net barrier, but at the same time it doesn't really cut off the circulation and aeration of the plant. And so far that's been working quite well for me. I haven't seen as much fungus gnats actually going on top of the soil because of that actually shielding it off. Now the other thing that you'll find is that if those larvae become adult, it's very hard for them to actually seep through that layer of sphagnum moss because it's quite thick and often dry. So yeah, I would recommend that as well. Now, if you guys have anything else to add, please jot them down in the comments down below. I'm actually really interested to know what has worked for you guys, what hasn't, and if you guys agree with what I'm saying or you guys have tried it, please let me know down in the comment down below. I hope that you guys find this useful. If you have, then please go ahead and click that like button. If you do want to see me make more videos like this and you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, I will see you guys on the next video. Until then, goodbye and God bless.